Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Mighty Man Podcast. I'm delighted to have my guest, Jeanne Lewis, on the podcast today. We met during the dot-com boom when I moved to San Francisco from New York to launch a new business magazine. Jeanne was my first hire as the art director. Her unique talent helped create the visual tone for our sales materials, campaign, and even the cover of a custom Bare Naked Lady CD. Jeanne has had quite a journey since our halcyon days in San Francisco, and she is without a doubt one of the mightiest people I know. So welcome to one of my favorite people and the tallest girl I know, all the way from Hawaii, Jeanne Lewis. Aloha, Jeanne, how are you?
Aloha. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I love that you've got the palm front. It's between one fern today.
Yeah, I've gotta like set the tone here, you know?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. So I thought we'd just start with, when did you start to get interested in design?
I think, so I grew up in New Orleans, youngest of 6 kids, and we used to go on these crazy long road trips. We all like, athletes, tennis players, whatever. And my dad would just take off of work for like 3 or 4 weeks and pile us all into some, station wagon. And we'd be on the road for, I don't know, it was just like insane. But I always had a sketchbook because I always
Cool.
shoved back. So I had like crayons and, my mom would give me all these art materials just to like entertain myself. And I would always sketch on these long road trips. And my mom was like, hey, like, you're pretty good, maybe when you grow up, you can be a commercial artist, which, I was like, what is that? Like someone who does billboards? So that was the first time I had heard like commercial artist. So then in my mind, my whole life, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a commercial artist. I'm going to be a commercial artist. And then, of course, that turned into graphic design as we know it.
Sure.
And it's funny because like I have kids and they don't know what they want to study. At least one of them doesn't know what they want to study. But I feel like I knew from a very young age. And I stuck with it. And that's kind of how that happened. I just
That's cool. So when you started to put together your first portfolio, what types of things did you include?
So I interned at Marvel Comics when I was in college. So I interned at Marvel Comics and Rolling Stone. And everyone, like even my professor at school was like, how'd you get the Marvel Comics internship? And I was like, I just called him up and I said, hey, can I come work for free? My parents said they'd pay for me to live in New York City for 6 months. And I had gotten a volleyball scholarship, hence the tall girl comment. And so because I had gotten this volleyball scholarship to school, I went to my parents and I was like, hey, like, can you pay for me to live in this dorm situation in New York so I could do this internship?
Sure.
And I got to work for free. And they're like, yes, we'll do that. Meanwhile, I had like gone to get my hair cut and it was like $20, which seemed like so much money back then.
And that kind of leads me into my next question, which is, I mean, obviously I lived in New York as well, and there's a certain kinetic energy that's there. How did you adapt to moving from New Orleans to New York?
Oh, I mean, Matt, first of all, I worked at Marvel Comics, so I wore overall cut off jean shorts and Birkenstocks to work every day at 28th and Park, which the offices are not there anymore, so don't go looking for them. And all my friends worked in these corporate jobs and they made way more money than I did, but they actually wore like grown-up clothes. But I would make eye contact with people when I first moved there because I'm from the South. So I'm just like, smile, hi, and at one point this is when I was working at my next job in Times Square. I was coming up from the subway and I caught eyes with this older woman who reminded me of my mom so much.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, God, and I'm not saying anything. I'm just like looking at her. And as we get closer, she's like, what the F are you looking at? And I was like, whoa, damn. And that did it. I was like, don't make eye contact. Just like when you're on the subway, it's like blinders. Like, this is like pre-AirPods. If I had those, that would have been helpful. So
Absolutely.
I learned pretty quickly not to engage with every single person that you see on the street. I mean, I would be like standing in line for the crosstown bus in a blizzard and everyone's all orderly. And then when the bus came, people started elbowing. And so pretty soon, like, I was like, screw you. So when I went back home to New Orleans to visit, my sisters and brothers were like, you're like super aggro. I was like, I'm a New Yorker.
You had to adjust back to the Southern belle that I know you are.
Yeah, because something would be wrong at a restaurant. And I need to go talk to the manager. And they're like, no, you don't. It's like, just shut up. I was like, you're right.
I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit about your decision to move to San Francisco.
Oh, gosh. So let's see. I planned to be in New York for 2 years and I ended up staying for 5. So I interned at Marvel Comics for 6 months, and then I went back for my last quarter and I graduated, and then they hired me, thank God. I stayed there for 2 years and then worked for Ad Week, Brand Week, Media Week. And my boss at that job was of retirement age, and he was day trading his retirement account. So every morning when I got in, I would go in with my coffee and we'd sit there and he would show me this little bookstore that he had invested in called Amazon. And we would just watch, we're like, what is happening with this bookstore? It was so exciting. And he
That's
was,
cool.
we invested in AOL and all this stuff. So it was a
Sure.
really exciting ride. And I just felt like after 3 years, I need to move to New York. And I need to work for Time Inc. because back then Time Inc. had 4 weeks vacation and I only had
Sure.
2 weeks. So I knew one person at Time Inc. who worked at Fortune, who you know who that is. And she was a good friend of mine. And we went out for drinks and I said, I'll work for Baby Talk magazine. I don't care who I work for. Like, I just need to get 4 weeks vacation and don't tell anyone, but I'm moving to San Francisco. And she's like, well, don't tell anyone that Time Inc. is starting a business magazine and they're looking for an art director right now. Call this guy Matt. So then I called you and I flew out a few days later.
Yep.
And you and I, it's like I had known you my whole life. It was like your personality. I was like, who are you? Where did you come from? We went to lunch. It was the best time. That was the best.
It was great.
It was the best move.
I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'm going to ask you in a second about a memory that pops out of the launch. But for me, it was when we had worked together on the ad campaign, we sort of lost track of the media when it was going to be placed. And we went to lunch and opened up the door and our billboard was on a building next to my car. And we both flipped out. I will never forget that for the rest of my life.
E-company now, learn to love traffic. Remember
That's
that?
right.
My God.
Plastered right on that building. It was awesome.
It was like what was the Apple campaigns back then? Think different. And it was think different. And then it was learn to love traffic. And we're like, oh my God.
It was awesome. Is there anything that pops into your mind about that time?
Just the amount of fun that we had. I mean, your office had the most insane view of the Bay Bridge. And just watching everyone's face every time you had a meeting, someone for the first time would walk in, they'd be like, and I'm like, I know, just take it in 5 minutes. Okay. All right. Now you can meet with them. Your view was insane. It looked fake. It looked like a movie backdrop.
It was insane. It did. It looked like when the newscasters get on and talk about San Francisco, that fake thing behind them was my real window.
Yes.
It was insane, but it was great.
It was so
fun. Obviously we had a wonderful time, but you were busy already having an entrepreneurial spirit. When did you first start? I know creativebug.com was initially just your site because I remember I would email you at that URL. But tell me the evolution of Creative Bug.
So when I was living in New York, everyone was buying domains, right? There was like, it's kind of like AI now. You're just like, what am I doing? This is like dawn of the internet. I got to buy a domain. And I knew that I wanted to move to San Francisco. So I need to create this Flash website and I need a URL so that I can send it to people to show my portfolio. And so I had this idea. I wanted to do like, the man with his arms out and then he ingests some rainbow pill and then it goes like disco man. And it's like he injected the creative bug. Because
I see. Okay.
Bug, and so the bug is inside of you and you're this creative, insane human. I bought creativebug.com. That was my first URL. And that was to put my portfolio online to then send to people like you. And so I was using that email address when I contacted you. Meanwhile, I never even finished the site because then I moved to San Francisco.
So when did it evolve into the crafting site or the crafting idea?
All right.
Of course.
Time Inc. I love my job at Time Inc. so much. I love that job more than anything. And I used to have nightmares that I accidentally quit my job and I'd wake up and I'd be like broken out in sweat, like, oh, I quit my dream job. This is awful, And then I'd be like, I didn't quit. Then one day, we had this column in what became Business 2.0 and it was called the Eureka Moment. And I used to love that column because it was like, when did people have this idea of their thing that turned into a company? And so I kind of hit a wall and I was like, I think I need to like leave Time Inc. and go work at like Pandora or like all these new companies were starting in San Francisco. There was so much. I mean, you talk about the energy in New York. The
Sure.
energy in San Francisco was just so compressed because it's a
Right.
much smaller city.
Yep.
And I felt like everyone there was trying to start the new thing. It was like a city that was an incubator. It was so exciting. It was just an exciting time to live there. So
Sure.
anyway, I gone home to New Orleans for Easter. And at that point, I had interviewed with like a couple of other tech companies and nothing. I mean, some things were working out, some wasn't. I just felt lost. And so I said to my sister, I don't know if I should stay at Time Inc. I don't know what I should do. All these companies are starting. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm missing some train. And then she's kind of like the woo woo. Like, she's like, why don't you write down 10 things, on 10 pieces of paper, write 10 things that you could do.
Yep.
So I write down all these different things. And then I'm the younger sister, if you can't tell.
Of course.
And then she's like, write down, start your own business. And I was like, I don't want to start my own business because I've done freelance. Like, I don't want to chase
Right.
people up for invoices. I'm not going to do that. So we did that exercise where you put your arm out and then read something aloud, and then they push on your arm, and your
Yep.
body is supposed to know before you know.
Groovy.
So all these things that I thought I wanted to do, my arms just like flappy arms. And then I get to start your own business, and my arm, it was like I was the Hulk. All of a sudden I was like the Hulk, and she couldn't move my arm. So then we leave the session, like, I leave her, and I was like, I don't even have an idea. Like, I'm not starting my own company, like, whatever. I don't know what this was. So we drive, my husband and 2 kids, we drive to Florida to go see my high school friend.
Yep.
This is all during Easter break. I go bike riding with her, and she's telling me about her mom, how her mom's this amazing artist.
Cool.
And she was complaining about her mom, paying all this money for these on-demand art classes.
Oh, wow.
And it's
Okay.
like, it's like 4 weeks on, and you pay hundreds of dollars, and then it goes away.
Yep.
And her mom's teaching, and she doesn't have a lot of money.
Yep.
If Lynda.com could just get together with Etsy, then that solves the problem. Then you just pay one price and you take as many art classes as you want, across all disciplines. And I was like, yeah, wait, that has to exist. I'm sure that exists, right? So then on the drive back to New Orleans before flying back to San Francisco, I said to my husband, yeah, that's got to exist. I should look into that because that's I want that. I'd love to learn how to knit or paint or whatever or sew.
Yeah.
And I said, but I don't have the name. And my husband, Dave, was like, you have Creative Bug. That's kind of a perfect name. I'm like,
Sure.
oh my God, you're right. So then we got back to San Francisco, and I was still working full time, and I just did the next thing, and I tried to do one thing every day. Like, it turns out I knew an editor at Knitting Today. I had no idea that was her job. You know how you're friends with people, but you don't always know what they do.
You don't until you ask.
Yeah. So then I basically paid out of pocket for this guy to come shoot a pilot video to see what it would look like. And on my way home from that, I was like, oh my God, I need to raise $100,000 from friends and family. And I was thinking, I'll shoot it all. I'll edit it. I'll do the website. I'll do everything, right? Because I'm an art director. And then on the way home from that shoot, which was 9 hours, by the way, and the artist was like sweating, and it was so brutal. I'm crying at the wheel, and I'm like, I don't need like $100,000. I need 600 grand. Where am I going to do? I don't know how to raise money, but I did do all these sales development pitches for people at Time Inc. So I do know how to do a pitch deck, not for myself.
Right.
But then I just, I said, well, let me just do some research. Then I put together a deck. My husband worked at a financial company, and he said, why don't you come in and practice on these guys?
Sure.
Just to get practice before you get real meetings. And he's like, they're not going to give you more than an hour. So just do your best. I'm like, fine. I go in with my cousin at this point. My cousin has joined me. She's like the business side because I'm just the art side. Anyway, so we go in. We're so nervous. And like an hour and a half, it's going amazingly well. They're totally engaged. And like an hour and a half later, I see my husband like walk by the floor to ceiling glass windows, and he's like, what are you, why are you still here? I keep going. And then they're at the end of the meeting, they're like, yeah, we're going to do it. And I was like, wait, do what? And they're like, we're going to do the investment. I was like, okay. All right. And they're like, do you have a term sheet? And I was like, I don't even know what a term sheet is. But I was like, yeah, I will get you a term sheet. And Julie and I walked out and like walked down the street and walked into like the first law office and was like, can we talk to someone about getting a
Sure.
We got to make this happen. So that happened. And then lo and behold, I had to quit Time Inc. So I raised the money. It was like Thanksgiving of 2011. I raised the money. And then I stayed in bed for like 4 days. I like called in sick because I was freaking out. Because I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
bet.
now I have to actually do this because the
Sure.
money will come in. It's in, right? We have lawyers involved. So I
Right.
was like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? So I quit Time Inc. It was like jumping off without a parachute, the thing I was most afraid of. So I did that. And then thank God it worked out. And I mean, the first video editor, I met with her at a coffee shop in Coal Valley and I was like, here's my site. I designed this
Yeah.
site. Do you want to be my video editor? And she like drove a motorcycle and she like lived in the Mission or something. And she's like, yeah, this is cool. I'll do it. It was like one by one. And then I like met Kelly Wilkinson, who was like our editorial director. And I think she did a craft column for the Washington Post and she was on NPR. And I said, I can't afford to pay you that much, but here are like the 800 things I need done in this role. Maybe you could do it, like take half of it because that's what I can afford. And she called me like 3 days later and she's like, oh no, I'm doing all of it. I want to do
Nice.
everything on this list. And I was like, okay. So it's just like one thing at a time.
Sure.
And we were like interviewing people at Mission Pie, like because we didn't have offices. I mean, it
Yeah.
was crazy. And we started with like 8 people, I think. I mean, making no money. We got a warehouse space in an old brandy warehouse and we like went to thrift stores and junkyards to find stuff to build a set. And we couldn't afford a Steadicam. So we'd use skateboards because all my guys skateboarded. I mean, and there was one time they were editing this one shot of I come around the corner and I see like 5 guys around or 3 guys around a laptop and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's hot. That's really hot. And I was like, oh my God, what are they watching? What are they watching? What are
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
watching? And I come around the corner and it's like Liesl Gibson, who's a New York fabric designer, and she's ironing the fabric. And they're like watching it over and over again. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's like craft porn. Like,
That is so cool.
these guys are so into it. And I think
Yeah.
they had said like, we're into it because we think we're artists. And then we're like
Right.
artists filming artists. Even though it's sewing, they're like, we can appreciate that she's an artist.
Yeah,
So
that's so
it was so
cool.
fun. Yeah.
And then when did you realize that it started to catch on with viewers and customers?
So the subscription was probably priced too high in the beginning. So we had very few subscribers and we were growing them each month. And, our whole strategy was like all ships rise together. So
Yes.
we did this model where, we have like fabric designers from New York and knitters from Berkeley and, all these different disciplines. And they all have their own following, right? Because this
Oh,
was
right,
very
right.
much in the like DIY blogger
Yeah.
phenom craze, everyone's blogging and everyone's making stuff and it's all DIY. And so we thought, well, the jewelry designer from San Francisco has a following and then this
Right.
person. And so we thought they're all going to bring their audiences. And then, hey, guess what? The audience from the jewelry designer is going to get exposed to the New York fabric designer. And how cool
Yeah.
is that? They're sharing their audience. So that's kind of how we home grew it, if you would, like organically. And then I think words start getting around and like we were running out of money because it's really expensive. I mean, it's gotten a lot cheaper.
All the video,
to shoot
right?
video and the equipment's got, we had to buy all the equipment up front. So it was a lot of upfront costs. So we were like sort of running out of money, but not, we probably had like 6 or 8 months.
Yep.
And had 3 different companies approach us to acquire us.
Wow.
And I was like, gosh, I was like, all right, well, all I cared about was who's going to let us continue to do and build what we're doing,
Sure.
and not just absorb us and change the name and take
Yep.
all our content, because like we had relationships with these artists
Yeah.
and we wanted to protect them. So we just wanted to make sure it was the right fit. And so we picked the one that was like the least crafty because they were going to basically just financially back us, let
Yep.
us build out our office in San Francisco, build out a second studio, wish list of all the things we wanted.
Sure.
And so we went with a company in Santa Monica and then like a year later, we got sold again. We sold to, we were then acquired by AT&T and the Chernin Group with someone who wanted to do like an over the top offering for everyone in the family. This is when streaming was becoming a thing. You had like, it was like pre-Hulu, Netflix, all that stuff. So it was like, oh, you need your channel. And so we were going to be the offering for like the women age 18 to 60. And then we went from that to like, we moved into all this new flashy office and we had like a gym and free lunch every day. Anyway, so that was kind of fun and a wild ride. And then I left in 2015 because I
Yep.
had worked probably 10 years in 3.5 years
Sure.
around. And so I just decided like it's time for me to just take a break.
Yep. So looking back on that experience, if somebody was at that phase where they're in a corporate job, but they have an idea, what sort of things would you recommend? What would your advice be?
I mean, you're asking me this at a time where you could just think something and create it. AI is completely blowing my mind. I've paid so much money to developers over the years that now I'm like, you, as long as you can write a prompt, you can build anything. My head is spinning. I'm so excited and terrified that I don't,
Yeah.
if I were to do so, I mean, back then I would have said, okay, keep your job, right? I think life kind of shows you where to go next if you're open to it.
Yep.
Like my sister, the same sister that did that exercise with me, she used to say, like, get out of the driver's seat.
Yeah.
There is a plan, just enjoy the ride. I gotta work hard, and she's like, trust me. At some point you have to trust the process and know that the next thing that you're looking for will appear through a friend, through a conversation, through a movie, on the radio. If you're just open to it, you will know what the next step is. There are
Sure.
many
Now,
signs out there if you're just willing to see them.
absolutely. Now, talking about life being kind of unpredictable, I know you're a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
So I think you were dealt some tough cards at a strange time in your life when things seem to be going really well. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I had breast cancer in 2024. My kids play volleyball. They're taller than me, if you can't believe it. And so we were at a volleyball tournament, a big tournament in Vegas, and I had really bad vertigo. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I had had a lump removed in my early 20s.
Okay.
And my best friend since like first grade reminded me that I had had really bad vertigo around that time because it
Oh,
was like
wow. Okay.
devastating. I was like, that's weird that you remember that. But I couldn't even like I had to lay in the hospital bed, I mean, the hotel bed for 24 hours with an eye mask on, because if I
Oh,
opened my
wow.
eyes, I would throw up. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really awful. So I ended up getting out of Vegas alive. And I live in Hawaii, so it's really hard. Like we don't have a lot of specialist doctors on the island
Yep.
where I live. So it was really hard to get in to get a mammogram because I had felt when I got back from Vegas, I felt a lump and it was like a rock, right? Like
Yeah.
hard, like it was unmistakable. And I was like, there's something here. But anyway, my sisters were like, we don't have the BRCA gene mutation, but don't worry about it. And I was like, oh, I'm not worried about it. And then I was like, that's probably just a benign lump like in my
Yeah.
20s. So I finally got in mid-July. I had found the lump in May and I didn't get into the doctor until mid-July. So that
Oh,
gives you an
wow.
idea of the medical situation here. I mean, it's beautiful. It's amazing living here, but
Sure.
there are sacrifices. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I went in and they're like, okay, great. Like you did your mammogram. And they're like, we're going to go in this next room. And I was like, what? And they're like, we're going to do an ultrasound. And I was like, all right. And then they're like, we're going to do a biopsy where they just shove this giant needle. And I was like, okay. And then would you mind if we brought in some students? I was like, okay, whatever. Like, whatever. So
Yeah.
then so then after that, they're like, they brought me in the next room and they're like, we'll know in 3 days, but we think
Yeah.
that you have cancer. So I was like, all right. So I get the report that says you have cancer
Yeah.
before the doctor calls me. So I'm like, asking the internet everything about like this report,
Right.
which was scary. And then I thought, well, whatever, it's one lump. I had had a mammogram the previous November. So from November to May, a lump formed, like it's early. So I was like, it's no big deal. I'm genuinely a positive person. Maybe this is just the universe's way of giving me a free lift, right?
Sure.
To get a lift. And then I went in, I flew to Oahu and I had an MRI and they found a second tumor.
Oh,
And so they're like, all right, this is growing. We don't like that. As long as it's not in your lymph nodes, then you won't have to do chemo and all this stuff. So I was like, all right. So then we went in and then it was in my lymph nodes. So
yeah.
I didn't have to do chemo because I was sort of at the age, I don't know, the whole menopause thing.
Yep.
Anyway, I didn't have to do chemo, or I decided not to do chemo, I should say. So my surgery was in October of 2024.
Yep.
And one of my close friends was having a 50th birthday party in Sicily. It was going to be a girls' biking trip. And it
Okay.
was 3 weeks before my surgery. And I said to my husband, I'm going to go because, like, this is going to be the perfect thing to take my mind off of this surgery. And, like, I just want to go have fun with my friends and forget about
Sure.
all this cancer stuff, because it was just like so many doctor's appointments, all this stuff. First 5 minutes on the bike, I crashed and I cracked 3 ribs. And it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I was after the fact, after I got through the trauma of being in the hospital in Sicily and not being able to breathe without crying in pain,
Sure.
I was like, wow, you got to be really careful what you ask for, because I wanted this trip to take my mind off of my cancer and my surgery. And that's exactly what it did. My surgery was like a cakewalk compared to cracking 3 ribs. My surgery was like, what else?
Oh,
What? You got any more
jeez.
needles? Just shove me with as many needles as you can. I don't even care because I have 3 cracked ribs. And like even when I was going into the operating room, I was like, can you just be careful moving me when I'm
Sure.
knocked out, because my ribs are healing and I don't even care about anything except for my ribs healing, because dear God, it was awful. So that was fun. And then now I'm, knock on wood, cancer free. I'm going to Oahu in a few weeks to go get I get like an MRI every year just to
Yep.
make sure nothing's there. And I'm on all these medications and stuff that I never thought I'd be on, but
Yeah.
it hasn't really affected me. I work out every day and,
Yeah.
I haven't had a lot of the symptoms that people say. And I'm trying all these, I'm kind of a hippie. So I'm trying all these, I'm like
Yeah.
going in the
Holistic
sauna.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm doing stuff that is supposed to help with joint pain, and I think it's working, so
That's
I'm
great.
managing.
Now, so you made it through that gauntlet of awfulness. And then I know that, at what point did you move to Hawaii for the rum business?
So I took time off, I think I left Creative Bug in August of 2015, and then I started a new company in May or June of 2016, even though I had no plans to do that. But I teamed up with my co-founder was this British guy that I used to work with at the previous company that had acquired Creative Bug, and we wanted to create kind of a private Facebook for families.
Yep.
Dave, his job was sort of like, slowing down, and he worked for an investment firm and they were kind of winding down, and they asked him if he wanted to work maybe 2 days a week. And he was like, you
Yeah.
know what? He's like, Jean just raised money. I've already been on this roller coaster. I know what it's like. And my kids are like middle school now. So like someone's got to be around. So we decided that he was going to stay home and manage the business, the family. So I could go off and do my startup thing. And then 2 months after he stopped working, his cousin who grew up in Hawaii found out he wasn't working and was like, dude, I'm starting a rum company and I need to build a financial model. And like, you got to help me because you're like the financial guy.
Yeah, sure.
And Dave's like, okay, I'll help you. I'll build you a model. Like, so he worked with him for a year from San Francisco, just kind of helping him think about like, okay, it was going to be like a mom and pop type,
Yep.
bootstrap thing. And then it was going to be, then next thing you know, it was like, we want to buy a 44-acre farm on the ocean and grow sugarcane because they wanted to make rum agricole, which was the whole point of the business.
Okay.
And then next thing you know, they got to raise real money. Next thing you know, they're doing a pitch deck. Next thing you know, they raise money. And during this process, I'm thinking it's going to take them a while to raise money because they
Sure.
haven't done it before. And, it takes time. And they did it in like 4 or 5 months. I had said, if and when you raise money, which I'm thinking is going to be like a year or two,
Right.
we need to move to Hawaii because you need to, like, I was the janitor, like, you need to wear many different hats. It's a startup. Like, you got to
Yep.
be there. You can't just phone it in. This is like hard work. And they raised the money, and it was like Thanksgiving of 2017. And I was like, I can't move to Hawaii. Like, I haven't even talked to my investors. Like, I can't move to Hawaii. And our girls were playing volleyball. We cannot take them out of school. So we decided we would move the summer of 2018.
Yep.
So that's what we did. And what a cool thing, like getting on that plane and a one-way ticket to Hawaii.
Oh my
I mean, I'll
God.
never forget that.
I can't imagine. It's so cool.
It was so crazy. Like, I was just like, I cannot believe I'm moving to Hawaii. And it took a couple of years. Like I reserved the right to like pull the ripcord after 2 years.
Yep.
It was like, if you're miserable, if the girls are miserable, like 2 years later, like no questions asked, we'll move
Sure.
back to San Francisco. We'll pick up where we left off. We'll go get jobs, like whatever. I don't think that man has worn socks in 8 years. So
That's
we
great.
stayed. I mean, he literally He wears shorts, an aloha shirt, like button down, and flip flops every single day of his life, except maybe when we go back to San Francisco.
I love
and
it.
then when
Now,
you put shoes on,
what's
you're
the
like,
name of the rum
what?
again?
It's called Kuleana rum. Kuleana
rum. Excellent. I'll definitely put a link to the site.
Additive free. We don't put any flavors, colorings, anything. It's just rum flavored rum. It's just
delicious
the stuff. And it's from the farm. We have a few different blends, but everything has the agricole in it. And it's won all these awards, and it's been really fun. I mean, it sounds like we're just partying every day, but we're not. We're actually working.
And you're doing all the design and package work, is that right?
Yep. So I do the bottle labels. We have a Rum Shack, which is a restaurant bar. Cool. So I do the menus, any kind of signage. I mean, I hadn't done print work in I don't know how many years. I was strictly like a web person. And so I'm like, I mean, figuring out paper stock and all that stuff that from Marvel Comics. And I had to relearn all that stuff, labels and sizing and like, the California CRV on the bottle labels and the barcodes. And I mean, it was like, what am I doing? But it's really fun. And Dave is the CFO.
That's so great.
And
now, have you taken a deep breath to realize everything you've been through?
Yeah. I don't work full time. I work half time right now.
Yep.
So I feel like I have a really good work-life balance, and I love learning things. So I feel like continuing to work, because A, we have 2 kids in college, so we need to work. But B, like I like constantly learning things.
You are one of the few people that I've encountered that's a New Orleans native, which is huge. And I had the pleasure of meeting most of your family and spending time there over the years. But I always wanted to ask you, what is the craziest thing you had ever seen growing up in New Orleans?
Oh, gosh. Well, I didn't realize that it was a thing until I moved to New York. And I was talking about growing up learning how to water ski. And we used to water ski on the bayou. So I grew up water skiing like this, right? And you're like, and you water ski, you're like, la la, and you're cruising around. And then when you're done, right? You look to the left and the right, you look for the eyes on the surface, because you need to make sure that there are no alligators at the surface. Because usually during the day, they stay down in the mud where it's cool because they're reptiles. So you would like look for the eyes, and then you wouldn't see any. And then you go like this, and they cut the engine. You'd sink into the water, and then they just come around and pick you up and pull you in the boat. And I thought that was normal.
No, that is insane.
Yeah. And then I'm living in New York. I mean, I remember another story about New Orleans. Like, I worked on Park Avenue.
Yep.
And I was on the strip of land,
Yep.
In the road.
The park.
Well, so I'm on my Nokia phone, it's like everyone's got the Nokia phones, and I'm on the phone with my friend, and I'm like, he's like, I don't see you. I'm like, I'm on the neutral ground. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I'm on the neutral ground. Like, you can see me. I'm waving. I'm on the neutral ground. And he's like, what? He's like, I see you, but what are you actually saying? And I was like, I'm on the, what do you mean? I'm saying I'm on the neutral ground. And he's like, what is the neutral ground? Like, are we at war? And I was like, it's a strip of land that separates this lane from that lane. Like, what do you call it? And he's like, a median? I was like median age? Like a median age? Like, you call it a median? And he's like, you call it a neutral ground. He's like, you're the weird one.
That is hilarious.
Oh my God, I think you're right. And my dad, like, we had this fishing camp, and my dad used to let us swim from our camp down to Mr. Jimmy's camp. Like, there were alligator garfish, there were alligators. I mean, there was like everything that you would be terrified of. And we would just be like breaststroking. Like, I would never let my kids go.
You went from swimming with the alligators to swimming with the sharks of New York City.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe that prepared me for New York.
My final question I've asked to all my guests, and that is, if I were to clone you and there were 2 Jeanne Lewises sitting in front of me, what would I ask to reveal the real Jeanne Lewis?
Who was her favorite boss?
Now, who would that be?
But that would be my other bosses.
I think this might be the best answer I've ever received.
That, and probably my scars, physical scars. Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome.
My favorite boss. It's you.
John, I appreciate it. And you are absolutely one of my favorite people on earth, and I appreciate you taking this time. I love you so much, and I'm so glad that you're here with us. And say hi to Dave and the girls for you, will you?
I will. I think you're awesome, Matt.
Okay,
you're mighty.
I'll talk to you later. All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope you'll click like and subscribe so you can meet the mighty.